Assalamu alaikum everybody, welcome to the third video in this series. Previously we discussed input devices in the past two videos, and this is the third video. Today in this video we're going to continue talking about the input devices, but this time it's going to be direct data entry and associated devices, which is basically input devices, but they do not require a human to control them. So let's get started. Apart from sensors, the input devices discussed so far have required a person to enter a data using a manual input devices, but there are other methods that allow data to be entered directly without human intervention. These are direct data entry methods. Okay, the first direct data entry device, which is direct data entry. Magnetic stripe readers on credit cards, bank cards, library cards, and hotel room key cards. You may see a blank magnetic stripe, as you can see over here to the right hand side. This cannot store much information, but many tasks do not require a lot of data, so it doesn't store a lot of information. But for example, it has a serial number that gets recognized by the locker, and the minute you get it close to or you swipe it, the door opens, sort of like that. Okay. Advantages of magnetic stripes: simple for people to use, no training needed, very inexpensive, very cheap, entering data is fast, just swipe the card, no errors on inputting data, it is all stored on the card. Data on the card can be altered if necessary. What are the disadvantages? They have a very small storage capacity. Data can be destroyed by magnetic fields if you place them next to a set of speakers. Insecure, criminals can easily obtain card readers and writers. You need to be with the reader to use the card. Cannot use a card with just a magnetic stripe over the internet. That is the magnetic stripe reader. Now we have another type of cards, which is called chip and pin readers. Chip and pin readers, credit and debit cards have always had a magnetic stripes on the back in order to store information that needs to be kept secret. To make the cards more secure, they now include a computer chip on the front of the card. It kind of looks like a SIM card. The chips hold the same data as on the stripe, but it is more secure as the data is encrypted. Later on we'll know about that. We'll know more. They can also generate and store details of the transactions each time they are used. So every time you withdraw money from an ATM, this will be stored on the card itself. When making a payment using a chip and pin card, the user inputs the card into an input device called a chip and pin reader, which reads the information stored in the chip. Okay, so this is chip and pin, and the one below is the magnetic stripe reader. Chip and pin readers and magnetic stripe readers. Now it's called chip and pin, PIN, personal identification number, I think, yes. The most important piece of information in the chip and pin personal identification number, which is the digital code that the user must know to be able to use the card. The user types the pin on the numeric keypad attached to the reader. That pin is checked against the pin stored on the chip and on the card's chip, and if the two match, then the payment goes through. Let's go through the advantages of the chip and the information held is more secure than just the magnetic stripe because the chip is difficult to read and chips are harder to clone. It's really difficult to make another one, fake another one. The computer chip can hold more information than the magnetic stripe can hold. Chip and pin readers can be wireless, which means that you don't have to get up, or the device can be brought to you when you are in a shop or a restaurant, rather than you having to go to the cashier, for example, to pay. Now let's discuss a little bit about the disadvantages of the chip and pin. People tend to be careless when entering their PIN, and people watching can see that. This is called shouldering or shoulder surfing. You can forget your PIN meaning you can't make payments with that card until you get a new one. Moving on to the third kind of readers, RFID stands for radio frequency identification, and an RFID reader will read data stored on RFID tags. An RFID device has similar uses to the barcode or the magnetic stripe on the back of the credit card, in that once it is scanned, it provides a unique identifier for the object it is attached to. So in the keywords over here, they have better definitions or different definitions. Radio frequency identification. Readers use radio waves to identify and track special tags attached to the object. A tag, radio frequency identification tag, contains digital data that can be interrogated by and send the data to a reader device using the radio frequency. Unique identifier, a characteristic or element that is found only on the particular item. Alright, let's read more about the RFID because it's really interesting. Almost anything can have an RFID tag. For instance, merchandises in supermarkets or stores, shipping containers, train carriages, expensive musical instruments, and so on. When animals are tagged, they have an RFID tag inserted under their skin. Contactless payment also use RFID. The card where you just have to touch the ATM and you don't have to like swipe it, this is called RFID. It has three elements: scanning antenna, decoder and interpret the data. Decoder to interpret the data. The RFID tag itself, which will have been programmed with information. When triggered by a signal from the reader, the tag transmits data back to it. Okay, let's read about the advantages of the RFID. The chips do not need to be positioned precisely on the scanner like a barcode. RFID devices work within a few meters of the scanner, so they could have said few meters away from the scanner. At a supermarket, all of the items in a trolley could be read at once. The trolley is like the cart that you put all of your things on it, or maybe the basket where you put all of your things at the counter. You can write data to RFID tags as well as being able to read them. So as a user, you can write them. RFID tags can be used for tracking items, for example, luggages or animals. Now let's discuss a little bit about the disadvantages. The tags can be read without authentication, so you don't have to enter a PIN number, and so hackers could be able to read any sensitive information or even clone them. So like if you have your credit card that uses RFID and you have it in the wallet, people can actually come close to your wallet and transfer money from that. Believe it or not, it happens nowadays. RFID scanning can be affected by other electrical devices in the vicinity. The range of RFID is limited to about 3 meters. Okay, so we've discussed the 3 types of cards. Okay, so the first one was magnetic stripe reader, which is the most simpler one, where you have to swipe the card, this one. And then we have chip and pin readers, which is also a card, but this one has a sort of like a SIM card in it. Let's not call it SIM card, let's call it chip. Okay. Alright, the third one is the RFID, which stands for radio frequency identification, which is the most cool one, but at the same time it's very dangerous. Moving on to OCR and OMR. So I'll try to make this as simple as possible. OCR, it's short for optical character recognition. It is when you have a printed document and you want to scan that, not take a picture, but scan it for softwares like Microsoft Word to actually recognize every character in that document. Okay. OCR software. Okay, then we have OCR and then we have software. The software compares the shape of each character with the shape that it knows, like for example ABCs or 1, 2, 3s, and when it is matched, the computer stores that letter. For example, the letter R this can make the input of data from hard copy document much quicker than retyping them. So like you have your book, if you tried scanning it with an OCR, it's going to be just like this document. This document is not an image because I can actually select the text in it. Okay, let's move to the advantages of OCR. It can be a really fast way to entering hard copies into your computer. It can avoid typing errors. It is much cheaper than employing someone to input hard copy if a high level of accuracy isn't an issue. So it's really difficult. It's really cheaper than hiring someone to type in all of your documents. The disadvantages is the text produced is not always reliable, particularly if the hard copy original hard copy has strange fonts or poor handwriting. Is unclear or has smudged text. This can lead to incorrect information being stored. If 100% of accuracy is required, the information needs to manually checked. It needs to be manually checked, which is time consuming and can be costly. Now that was OCR, which is short for optical character recognition. The next one is OMR. This one is less fancy than the previous one because this one doesn't recognize all of the characters. Let's read about it. A scanner can be used to scan a sheet of paper and identify any marks, okay, not characters, any marks on it. The software can then use the positions of these marks to obtain information. For example, a position would show which option has been selected as the answer to a multiple choice exam questions. So multiple choice exam questions in some of the universities, they don't get checked or graded by a human being. They have an OMR software where they stuff all the answer sheets on them, and then OMR a scanner, they stuff the scanner, and then an OMR checks which answer has been chosen. So if we were asked what is OMR, what is it short for, this is known as optical mark recognition or optical mark reading, OMR. Yeah, let's go straight to advantages of the OMR. It is extremely fast to input data. Fast, it's more accurate, more than using humans to check the papers. I think more accurate and less expensive, right? Disadvantages of OMR: the sheet will not be read accurately unless they are properly lined up and the marks shading are in the correct position. So I have to put the papers properly lined up, and the students, they have to fill in this the shading where exactly where they are supposed to. Dirty marks on the paper might be misinterpreted by the system as marks to be input. Can only read the marks. You can't read anything else, not text or anything. Because of the speed of the machines, paper jams can occur. Moving on to barcode readers, which everyone knows. It's not this one because this is QR, but barcode readers. Barcode readers is a set of short parallel lines in contrasting colors, often black and white. The dark lines are thick, medium, and thin. They have three sizes: thick, medium, and thin. If they are taken in pairs, sometimes you'll find two lines so close to each other of dark and pairs of light lines. They can stand for the digits 0 to 9. Okay, so everybody knows what a barcode is and what a barcode reader is. Okay, these are the examples of information contained in a barcode on a typically supermarket products: country of origin, manufacturer, item numbers, check digits, and so on. Okay, now the next one is the QR scanner, the one that you can see to the right side over here in the picture. Okay, QR scanner, quick response. QR is short for quick response. Quick response codes are a type of two-dimensional barcodes. It's not like the regular barcode here. It's two-dimensional, up and down, left and right. Barcodes that can be read using a camera and software to interpret them and provide a link directly to text, emails, or websites. So we've used QR codes as admins. We've used them to direct parents to send an email to the school, or direct them to the school's website and other things. Now let's go to advantages of QR codes and scanners. You can store lots of information on a QR code without having to write it down. QR codes can be used for anything by anyone. QR codes can be scanned from any direction, making them easier to be read with less possibility of background interference. The disadvantages are you need the smartphone with a camera and the app installed to be able to read them. QR codes are still relatively new, and so not everyone is aware of them or what they represent. I still remember the day when I sat in a restaurant and I asked for the menu and they said you need to scan this QR code. Alright, this would be the end of this video. We generally spoke about direct data entry, direct data entry, the magnetic stripe, the chip and pin, the RFID, radio frequency identification. Then we move to OCR, OMR, so that your computer can recognize characters or marks, optical character recognition and optical mark recognition. And then we move to barcode readers, and finally we got a bit of knowledge about the QR scanner. On this point I will end this video and see you the next time in the next video, where we are going to start talking about output devices and their use. Till then, take good care. Bye.